Hey, copper nerds. This one's kind of an interesting question. Would you ever intentionally overpay for a coin? There's circumstances where I would. Let's get into it. These two coins appear on the channel pretty often. They're 1823 restrikes, which are counterfeit coins struck on authentic US dies that were sold with some scrap steel by the US Mint back in the 1800s. And these were struck sometime prior to the 1870s. I got into the restrikes because I went to the ANA's summer education conference and took an EAC course. And the ANA happens to have the dies that were used to strike these 1823 restrikes that were going to be sold in the Jules River collection. The feds intervened, and the dies are now on permanent loan to the ANA, where I was able to inspect and handle those dies. And I thought they were super interesting, particularly because of all the damage to the dies, that big cud and the bisecting crack and that lower crack on the obverse, and then the reverse on these late die states have cracks throughout them as well. So I set out to get a 1823 restrike after handling the dies, and this was the first one I came across that caught my eye. It's a very early die state example. Only 40 some were struck before the die cracked at that private minting, which then led to a transfer in ownership of the dies and a second striking that just had the bisecting crack, and then another transfer of the dies and a third striking which had that third crack through it. I say all that to say this. I picked up this coin from Early Cents for $1,500. I didn't know what these restrikes were worth or what they would go for. I wouldn't have been surprised by $1,000. I wouldn't have been surprised by $5,000. I didn't really do much market research. I want to say that Chris McCauley had this one marked at 1,800, told me he could do 1,500 on it, and I snatched it up. It was the only one on the market at the time, And then I asked them to keep an eye out for me for this late die state one, which I picked up for $1,750. If you go look right now on eBay, last time I checked was a couple of days ago, there is an early die state one that is pretty ugly. It's got the cud just tooled off without any dentals having been engraved or without the cud having been left intact. And it's got a big fly speck right in front of Liberty's face, just a big black spot. And that's not one that I would be interested in obtaining. There is a nice late die state example out there that was maybe 1 point higher than this. This was an MS62. There's an MS63 out there that's, I think, $1,850. But moral of the story, I guess, is if when I had tried to find this coin, there had been none available, I would have continued the search. And if one of these would have popped up for $2,500, I would have gladly overpaid to get an example of this coin. It's one that I really wanted to get. Again, handling those dies at the ANA was quite the numismatic experience. And I wanted both early and late die states, was able to get them. But these are really, really hard to find coins. And I'm never going to sell them, so it doesn't really matter what the value is, I guess. If I wanted an example and there was only one out there and somebody was asking $3,000 for this one, would I have bought it? I probably would have. And I would have been fine with that. I guess I only really care about whether or not I overpaid for a coin if I think there's a chance I'm going to turn around and sell it. These two are going to be sort of family heirloom legacy coins. Both of my sons joined me at the ANA for that summer conference, and they both got to handle the dies as well. And ultimately, when I'm dead, they're going to each receive one of those. And hopefully I can get my missing one, that middle die state, and then they can fight over that one if they would like. But if someone had a middle die state example out there, and if the market is $1,500 for one, and they said, I'll sell it to you for $2,500, let me know. I'd be interested. I would overpay for a middle die state 1823 restrike to complete my collection. And I don't think that's crazy. I think it makes good sense that if there's something, really the supply and demand can dictate the price sometimes. If the gray sheet says it's a $1,500 coin, but there's none out there available, I don't know. I wouldn't blame a seller for trying to get more for it. And I wouldn't blame a buyer for saying, here's my chance to get an example of a coin that I have wanted for a long time, and they spend that money. I would never tell someone, oh, you overpaid for that, unless they were trying to do a quick flip. If someone paid $3,000 for one and was turning around saying, hey, I just picked this up for $3,000, does anyone want it for $3,500? I might pass and say, if you're trying to flip it for double what it's worth, that's crazy. But if someone was sincerely holding on to one and said, hey, I don't really want to part with it, but if you want to pay me more than it's worth, I'll sell it to you, I'd consider buying it. And again, I don't think that's a dumb move necessarily. I look at gold and silver more for investments. My numismatic coins are more, out of my love for the coin varieties and for collecting a series. And for me, sometimes the price is not the only consideration, and I will overpay for the right coin. I look forward to your thoughts on that one in the comments. So let's hash it out a little bit, and then I will catch you on the next one. Peace.